Here's Ford's pitch, okay? Take the 400 horsepower twin-turbo V6 from the ST, but with an upside the family can actually get behind. It is so much easier to justify a potential weekend camping trip or going off-roading than it is a more stiff and dynamic experience on the back roads or getting through traffic to work. This is the 2026 Explorer Tremor, and it has every upside you can pitch to your family that the ST does not. That 400 horsepower is the Explorer Tremor's greatest asset. This engine, far and away, just blows the competition out of the water in terms of horsepower and torque. 400 horsepower, 415 pound-feet of torque, and it's got a wide power band too. So that peak torque is at 3,500 RPM, peak power is at 5,500 RPM. Even SUVs, three-row SUVs in the luxury segment that cost $20,000 or $30,000 more than this, maybe are touching 400 horsepower, and as far as three-row SUVs go, this is the family hauler. So it is exactly how I said it in the intro. It is meant to cover the entire spectrum. It's gonna be fast coming out on ramps, good on back roads, not quite as buckled down as the ST, but also be able to go off-road when you need to. So we're gonna get into price and all the options in a second, and a little bit of off-roading at the end, but let's put it in sport mode and see how well it jumps off the line. Took a second to build boost off the line, but once she's going, she is going. The Tremor does come standard with all-wheel drive, both here in Canada and the States, but this V6 is longitudinally mounted, which in this entire family hauler kind of vanilla segment, I guess we could call it, is an outlier. There are only a couple that really do what the Explorer does, which is send the vast majority of the torque to the rear wheels. And one of the biggest changes the Tremor gives us is a proper Torsen limited slip differential back there, which, interestingly enough, the ST is not hardcore enough to get for on-road performance. I guess Ford decides it doesn't need it, but the Tremor, of course, gets you a 1-inch suspension lift. We've got 18-inch wheels here instead of the larger options on the ST and Platinum. And then, of course, it's got a few steel underbody skid plates. As far as an on-road experience, the Explorer is super easy to drive. It's got really light steering, although it does have an oddly aggressive return to center, which doesn't feel the most natural. And then the suspension is a little bit stiff. It is on the harsher side. I was frankly quite surprised that the Explorer sits and rides like it does, even with these 18-inch wheels and a little bit more sidewall coming from those off-road tires. But the CX-90 and the MDX, for an example, ride much better on the street, and I prefer the steering in the CX-90. It's a little bit more natural, a little bit more fluid, I guess we could say. Brake pedals soft, so the inputs are all very kind of soft and forgiving, but then the suspension is stiff. So there's a little bit of a disconnect until you begin pushing it, and that's when the whole package comes together. I mean, it drives great. It handles awesome. I can feel it trying to send as much torque as possible to the rear wheels. And the 10-speed auto here, paired to that V6, is really good. It's super quick to downshift. Yes, it upshifts at any moment it can to get you the best fuel economy possible, which is not great. It averages about 20 miles per gallon if you never spool up those turbos. So that's one downside of having just an enormous amount of power on tap at all times. But the 10-speed's great, even here in normal mode. The V6 does just kind of sound like a bunch of rushing air. There's not really much of a sound to it. The ST gets a different exhaust, and as a daily, it does everything you would expect a three-row SUV to do. Is it fun to drive? No, but is there torque on tap all of the time? Yes. Are some of the rivals, the CX-90, the MDX, the Palisade, a little bit smoother as far as shifting goes around town? Yes, but especially when you put your foot into it, the 10-speed does exactly what you want it to do. Ford still is using this dorky dial to change between park, reverse, neutral, and drive. I've gotten used to it because I've driven a few of these, but yeah, it's not the greatest. I will say, with traction on, it does not encourage you to use all of that torque with any steering input. I was at a red light, rolling off the line a little bit with at least 90-degree steering input, and I gave it not full throttle, but a lot of throttle, and when traction control cut in, power was fully cut for a few seconds, and it was a bit jarring, and then it finally allowed me to get back on power. But so 0 to 60 comes in about 5.2 seconds. That may not sound quick in a world of EVs, but for a around 4,800 pound three-row SUV, this could be your only vehicle. That's awesome. That is unbelievable. Yes, if you spec the V6, you have to pay $11,000 Canadian, or about $10,000 USD, for a bunch of other options, luxury options, tech options, the power folding mirrors, the memory seats, the auto dimming mirror, the fixed moon roof, I guess you could call it, the fixed glass roof, which by the way now for 2026 does not open. You have to spec all those things. So if you want the inline four, that option is available for you, but I would go with the V6. It's expensive, and we'll talk about that in a second, but first, let's take a look at the exterior. So the Explorer went through an exterior and interior update last year, but from the outside, I mean, this is just classic three-row SUV. The proportions are great. I don't know about you guys, I love the way the Explorer looks, mainly because it just kind of blends in. And yeah, if it weren't for the Tremor's orange accents, which you get on the grille there, and of course the tow hooks, which are added for Tremor, on the wheels there, the 18-inch gloss black wheels get a couple of little orange accents. If it weren't for those, this would just look like either a police interceptor or some kind of fleet vehicle. I know we have a lot of these in the BC Hydro fleet here in Canada, a lot of government vehicles. In that sense, I think it looks great. It still looks sharp, and the Tremor does just enough to separate it from especially the ST, but a few of the lower trim levels, as well as the platinum top tier trim. But we get a different grille here. Of course, it's split with this orange, the recovery hooks, like I mentioned, as well as these off-roading LED lights there. If you get the V6, the Tremor also gets LED fog lights and turn signals. And then underneath, the steel body skid plates, which allow for a little bit better approach and departure angles, not by much. But there she is, a little bit of black plastic kind of cladding there. Of course, I mean, the Tremor trim is basically a formula, not only in the Ford family, but with all manufacturers. You take a unibody three-row crossover and you turn it into something that might encourage people to go off-road. They might feel a little bit better about using it off-road. As far as three-row SUVs go, from the exterior, I did not expect this to have as much space, especially when the third row is down. Here you can see it with it up. There's not a whole lot of space here. Both the Honda Pilot and the Hyundai Palisade have a little bit more cargo space here. Their shape just allows for more. And if you spec the V6, you do get electronic folding third row seats, one touch. Those go down quickly. That allows for more space, of course, and there's an additional compartment underneath here. Now, third row space, for the size of the Explorer, which is not massive, the third row is huge. The headroom is great. 2 USB ports back here. And then of course, if you've got those down, you can use a couple of anchor points they've included too. The interesting thing is the Tremor does not have the option in the second row for a bench seat. So that would be something that I would imagine a lot of families could want. And if they were really catering to the off-road crowd, I would imagine not everybody actually needs a third row. So they could just have the option of deleting the third row and freeing up that for off-roading stuff, camping stuff, whatever. But same as the third row, but even more so the second row, so much space. The Explorer in general, as we'll see in a second up front, just has ample amount of space. There's a ton of headroom, leg room, and of course, climate control in the second row. The Tremor also gets that 110 volt outlet for the second row. 1, 2. So last year, the Explorer went through a massive update both on the exterior and the interior. And in here, they fixed a ton of stuff, but they didn't go way overboard like they did in the Expedition. If you want to see me rip on Ford a little bit, that's your review. But here in the Explorer, they've improved pretty much everything that needed improving. The materials are all pretty much soft touch above the waist. They feel great. There's some stitching. There's a few bits of added fabric. Everything looks and feels great. The best part about the Explorer when you step inside the cabin is just how much space there is. The door cards, I mean, there are cup holders everywhere. The center console is huge. There's a little bit of additional space down here by your USB ports. But on the other side, the flip side, the wireless charging capability has been axed for this model year. Look, I get it. People complain that their phones heat up and that they don't charge at all, even maybe maintain a state of charge if they've got Android Auto going, Apple CarPlay, navigation, music, all that stuff. I've never really found that to be an issue, and if I had to pick between a wireless charger or not a wireless charger, I would choose to have one, but Ford's just decided to cut costs and to appease that, I would guess, a vocal minority. So that's gone, which sucks. I already mentioned the panel roof, which no longer opens. That's gone. So those two things, those are two major sore spots, but I'm not gonna let that overshadow the rest of the improvements they've made. First off, these seats, although you are not able to spec leather in the Explorer Tremor at all, they've got suede inserts and the bolsters are just perfect, super comfortable. They hold you in great. Some of the most comfortable seats, and the heated seats, Ford does it best. They are borderline scalding, if I'm honest. They are also ventilated, and then with the top trim ultimate package, you do get massage seats. More or less, they're just kind of pushing the lumbar in and out. They are much better than some of the other massage seats you get, for an example, in the Outlander, which literally just push the lumbar in and out like that. It's a little bit more dynamic. There are a few more options here. Steering wheel is perfect. It's a little bit chunky, but the shape of it is great, and there's a few bits of orange stitching there. The center display, I'm so happy Ford has included the ability to put your maps, your Google Maps, which this is an Android system, so that's the default vehicle navigation. You can put that in the center display, as well as your phone integrated maps, which a lot of the competitors are still not able to do. So that functionality, although it may seem small, it's a huge deal. It's something I always look for. And then the center stack here, it's all Android based, like I mentioned. It responds incredibly quickly. They've ditched that vertical display. They did that last year. And most of the climate control is just accessible all the time on the bottom row. Few hard buttons down here, physical volume, your camera setup. It's okay. The resolution is not the greatest, but there are enough off-road options to impress the casual off-roader. And speaking of off-road, let's go do that right now. Even just on the way up here, I mean, I am thoroughly impressed with how this suspension actually translates off-road here. I was worried because it is a little bit stiffer that it would just beat me up out here, but these seats are saving me so much right now. When we get on it, if I have a spot here, if I have some open space, I'll get on it a little bit. That rear end just comes out immediately. So it'll play with you, and it actually has great characteristics on loose surface. All right, you guys, even before we got to the real articulation test, this turned out to actually be the articulation test, because as you can see, that wheel is way up off the ground. So this is absolutely not as capable as expected as some of the other true body on frame off-road dedicated SUVs. Of course, we already knew that, but you know, to push the limits of the Tremor is what it's all about. All things considered, it did pretty well with the articulation test. If you're not stepping up to a dedicated body-on-frame off-road SUV, the Tremor is a pretty good option. Although, I don't know if you guys noticed there, the brake-based torque vectoring system, especially in the front, was giving way more wheel slippage and loss of traction than I had anticipated, putting in a lot of work. So I don't know what's going on there, but the rear end with the Torsen LSD, putting down the power pretty well. Again, this is just a light off-road test. Price, okay? Here in Canada, the Tremor, if you spec the inline 4, starts at $59,000 Canadian. As tested, $79,000 Canadian or $68,000 USD. That's a lot of money. That's knocking on the door of an MDX Type S, and that has real massage seats and a adjustable air suspension, right? But as a flex, the Tremor and that twin turbo V6 knock everything out of the water at this price point. Am I still sour they got rid of wireless charging? Absolutely. I'm not going to let that go, but let me know what you think in the comments below. We'll see you next time.